This is Not Now, Maybe Later, a teen mental health podcast and a project of Sweetser. I'm glad you're listening, so let's get started. Hello and welcome to this episode of Not Now, Maybe Later. This is the third episode of the season, and this one is focused on what is therapy. So this is a teen mental health podcast, and we're going to cover a variety of topics this season. And I felt like it might be a bit of a miss not to talk about what therapy is. I'm a therapist, I work with teens, and this is going to be information that I would be sharing with you if you were coming in for one of your first therapy sessions. If you're listening and you've been to therapy before, please listen anyway, because hopefully what I go over should be true for you with your experience of seeing a therapist, or information that you want to make sure you understand if you're going to try someone new or have never been before. Okay, so let's start with what therapy is. Let me tell you, I think when I'm in a school and I'm providing counseling to a student there, a lot of times that person doesn't really understand the difference between what I do, what a teacher does, and what a guidance counselor does. And what we say really early on, hopefully the first time we're meeting, is what I do provides you with what's called confidentiality. When you go to talk to someone in your life, be it your friend or your parent, there's no protection that they're not going to tell somebody else what you said. When you go to talk to a teacher at school, they definitely might want to be someone who gets to sit and listen to you, but they are by no means obligated to keep a secret, to not tell someone what you've told them. Even a guidance counselor at school is under a set of rules where they're there to help you figure out some problems as they come up with school, but there are certain things they have to share with other people in the school, usually things that relate to school safety. When you see a therapist, when you see someone who is licensed to provide therapy, also called counseling, we have to pass an exam to get a license. And the license that those of us who provide therapy have comes with confidentiality. And what I tell clients is this: ready? I'm so glad you're here for therapy today. I wanted to go over a couple of things with you right away. So the first thing is, when you come in and talk to me, I have to provide you with a safe, confidential space. And what that means is you can tell me anything, and I'm not going to tell anyone what you said. Now, there's a little asterisk after that, which should actually be a big asterisk, which is there are a few situations where it cannot be kept a secret, where your parent or someone else who can help us gets involved. And here they are. If you are threatening to hurt yourself or someone else, that can't be kept to oneself. We got to figure out how to keep you and everyone else from harm. If you say that someone who cares for you or is an adult in your life is hurting you, we cannot keep that safe. We need to make sure that you are living with and being cared for by people who are not hurting you. So those are the exceptions to confidentiality, but otherwise, I often joke, you can come in and tell me all about what you're doing to fool around with people. You can tell me all about the weed you're smoking or other things that you cannot tell your parents, and I cannot tell anyone unless I think there is a real risk from what you're doing, and in which case I'm going to encourage you to talk with me to the person we need to talk to about that. This is the disclaimer. This podcast is for your listening enjoyment, but it is not therapy. If you're struggling and need help right now, tell someone in your real life. If you're in crisis and you live in Maine, call or text 888-568-1112 or text the word HOME, HOME, to 741-741. Don't wait. Ask for help. And the reason that we therapists create that safe, confidential space is that there's some things that teens don't want to talk to other people about. They're worried about consequences. They're worried about judgment. They're worried about other people finding out and twisting it up. So therapists are here to talk to you about anything and keep it private, with those few things being exceptions. Another thing that comes up with therapy is, how long am I going to have to see a therapist for? Or how long can I see a therapist for? And there's a lot of things that can factor into that. It could be the kind of therapy that you're getting. It could be how much your health insurance covers your therapy or how much your family is able to pay for it. So one of the things that gets talked about early on is, what is therapy going to be doing for you? So in which case, what kind of things might we be doing? And how long will it be before we stop and assess whether or not it's being helpful? A lot of therapists will say therapy might last anywhere from a month, if it's just sort of a drop in, I need to sort of sort something out that I'm dealing with right now, to 3 months, to 6 months, to a year. I've had clients I've seen for several years as they're just navigating their way through the rest of their childhood and into adulthood. So there's no absolute answer on how long therapy will last. It really depends on what you're going in for, where you're at in life, how you get along with your therapist. Not every therapist is right for every person. Not every client is right for every therapist. For example, I work with teens and young adults. I also will work with somebody's parents if that's going to help fix the bigger picture. Other therapists focus in on other particular kinds of mental health issues or other age groups. So when you're looking for a therapist, you're going to want to make sure that the person that you found does do work with people like you. One thing to note is there are different kinds of therapy. So there's therapies where you go in and you talk about your life, your past. There are therapies where you go in and just talk about what you need to figure out now, and that's one's called solution-focused therapy or short-term therapy. There's therapies that help you change the way you think. There are therapies that help you work through bad things that have happened to you in your life that you want to move ahead from. A therapist who helps someone with mental health issues is different than a counselor who helps someone who's using drugs or alcohol and wants to stop or needs to stop. Those are different kinds of therapies, and the training and licenses for those services are different. So make sure you're getting the right kind of letters from the person you're seeing. So I'm an LCSW. A lot of people who provide therapy might have the letters LCPC or LMFT. Those all stand for different kinds of therapists. There are other words that I need to explain when I'm meeting with someone, and I want to give you some explanations here so that you've heard it at least once. So something that needs to be decided on when therapy is getting started is, what is this person's diagnosis?
Are you or is someone you know suffering from severe mental anguish?
So a diagnosis, like with a doctor, is something that you get to determine, what's the problem here? What do we think is causing this person to not be okay? Diagnosis is done by assessments. There'll be questionnaires. There'll be someone possibly gathering information from people around you, like your parents or your doctor, if needed, with your permission. And the diagnosis is needed because in order for health insurance to cover therapy, the person coming in needs to have a mental health diagnosis that therapy should be able to help with. So some very common diagnoses that I work with and that come up for teenagers receiving therapy are things like depression, anxiety, ADHD, post-traumatic stress disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder. So people go to therapy to talk about things that they might not be able to talk with other people about. We call them sensitive topics. Some sensitive topics that might come up and very much are welcome to be discussed in therapy are use of drugs, alcohol, smoking, vaping, your sexual behaviors, issues going on in your dating life or with your boyfriend or girlfriend, issues related to your sexuality, who you're attracted to, how you want to be known and identified as, also related to gender identity. Therapy can be places for you to talk about these things without fear that it's going to somehow backlash at you in your real life. Technically, in the state I'm recording in, the state of Maine, the age of consent for someone to say, yes, I want to get therapy is 14. What that means is, as far as anything related to your therapy goes, you need to provide consent for therapy and for any information to be shared outside of therapy. Now, I want to say that doesn't necessarily work out perfectly because parents often also need to consent to services, and health insurance companies kind of require that the parent is also signing off on treatment plans and is aware that the service is going on because there's going to be a bill for that service that's going to be on your health insurance. The cost of therapy is something really worth understanding right off the bat. Therapists have their prices available usually wherever you find them, such as on a website like Psychology Today. They also list what insurances they take. Health insurance often has a copay for each session, so that's a cost that will be involved with each session. I have to say, one of the things I've heard, not very often, but from people coming in for therapy who maybe really don't want to, maybe their parents want them to, or it's been recommended by someone else like a probation officer or a school guidance counselor or a doctor. For someone who really doesn't want to be there, sometimes I've heard the feedback of, you're just doing this to get paid. And it's true, therapists are paid to do therapy. What I often say is, yes, it's true, I'm here to get paid, but there's lots of things I could get paid to do and I want to do this. So hopefully you get the feeling from your therapist that they're happy to be doing this work, and it definitely is probably more than just about making money. Another thing that's going to be done early on in therapy is coming up with goals. What do you want to have change in the course of the next 3 to 6 months? What will things look like when they're different or have gotten better? And then we turn those into treatment goals. So an example of a treatment goal would be Joe Schmo will learn skills to manage anxiety. And what that means is in each of the sessions that you do, there'll be some work done on learning ways to better manage symptoms of or thoughts related to your anxiety. Another goal might be so-and-so is going to figure out new ways to deal with stress. A goal I might have, because I tend to do trauma work with my clients, is so-and-so will resolve symptoms of their trauma. So these are the kind of goals you'll see on something called a treatment plan. Those treatment plans are written up by your therapist, reviewed with you, and then signed. And in my practice, we look over those treatment plans at least every 3 months, usually with a parent, since they're the ones who are sort of consenting to the therapy, and they're updated or changed or eliminated. If all's going well, we're going to move on and identify new goals or decide that all of your goals have been met and it's time to discharge from therapy. Some good places to look to find a therapist can be searching online. Sit down with the person who's going to support you in going to therapy and look at the profiles of therapists on websites like Psychology Today. Or if you're looking for a recommendation, talk to your doctor's office. They might have therapists that they recommend. If you feel comfortable, ask people in your life. Have you ever seen a therapist? Is there anyone you'd recommend? Getting a recommendation from someone you trust is a really good start because they're going to be able to get a sense of whether or not this person is a good fit for you. So if you listen to this episode and were asking, why might therapy be a good idea? Sorry, you're asking the wrong person. I think therapy is a good idea for everybody. It's nice to have a person to talk to who has no particular interest other than wanting to help you figure things out and feel better and less stuck in life. Thank you again for listening to this episode of Not Now, Maybe Later. This is a project of Sweetser. I am your producer and host, Emily Ostro. Thank you to the artist Superrar for use of the song Dopamine Hits as sampled in this episode. Thank you to Laura Sunderland Photography for the photo shoot. Thank you to Pixabay for free access to sound effects for this episode. And most especially, thank you to my sound engineer. You know who you are, and I love you so much. Please listen, follow Not Now, Maybe Later on your favorite podcast platforms. If you'd like to email suggestions, you can write to notnowmaybe.laterpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks, and talk to you soon.